I am Maud, and I am 68 years old. For the 3 years since my husband Gerald passed, I thought the deepest pain of my life was behind me. I was wrong, because on a gloomy Thursday afternoon, just after I had buried my own mother, my only son stood on my front porch. In his hands were not flowers of condolence, but a folder of papers from his lawyer and a demand that shattered my already fractured heart into dust. Before I tell you about the choice he made or the lesson I had to teach, I want to know where you are listening from. Are you also in a quiet house where memories of family are both a comfort and a weight? Please let me know in the comments below. And if you want to walk with a woman learning to stand up one more time, hit that subscribe button. For 42 years, this house on Maple Lane in Cedar Hollow, Ohio, has been my anchor. The porch swing where Gerald and I would drink iced tea on summer nights. The kitchen where I taught my boy Tyler how to crack an egg without getting shell in the bowl. The backyard where Gerald planted a rose bush for every one of our wedding anniversaries. After he died, the silence was a physical thing. A thick blanket I had to push through every morning. But I found a rhythm. The garden kept me company. My weekly visits to my mother Eleanor at the Cedar Glen Senior Residence, 10 miles away, gave me purpose. She was 85, sharp as a tack, and the last person on earth who called me by my childhood nickname, Maisie. Tyler was my world once. A bright, curious boy who loved building elaborate Lego cities on the living room rug and who would follow his grandfather around the hardware store asking a million questions. Gerald and I poured everything into him. We saved for years to send him to a good state college. I remember the pride that swelled my chest so big I thought it might burst when he graduated with his business degree. The shift was so gradual, I almost missed it. It started when he met Jenna during an internship in Chicago. Jenna was from a different world, polished, ambitious, from a family with what she called old money from the city. The first time Tyler brought her home for Thanksgiving, she smiled a perfect, polite smile and spent the weekend subtly adjusting the thermostat, commenting on the quaint size of our rooms, and asking Tyler if he'd remembered to pack his allergy medication because of all the dust in old houses. My Gerald, a mechanic who could fix anything with his hands, just quietly refilled her water glass and later said to me, "She makes our boy nervous, Maud." Their wedding was a lavish affair at a downtown Chicago hotel paid for by Jenna's parents. Gerald and I wore our best clothes and felt like awkward guests at someone else's party. Tyler, in his tailored tuxedo, looked like a handsome stranger. After that, his visits home became shorter, farther between. Phone calls were rushed, always ending with, "Jenna needs me for something," or, "We have this event." When Gerald had his fatal heart attack 3 years ago, Tyler came home for 2 days. He handled the arrangements with a cold efficiency that made my grief feel like an inconvenience. Jenna didn't come at all. She sent a massive wreath of lilies that cost more than Gerald's first car. It felt like a transaction. My mother, Eleanor, became my solace. Every Tuesday, I would bring her homemade chicken soup and vanilla pudding, and we would play cards for hours. She was the keeper of all our family stories, the last thread connecting me to who I was before I was a wife and a mother. She would pat my hand and say, "That boy of yours has lost his North Star, Maisie, but he's still your boy." I wanted to believe her. I held on to that hope like a life raft. The call came at 2:17 in the morning. The soft, apologetic voice of the night nurse at Cedar Glen. "Mrs. Dawson, I'm so sorry. Your mother passed peacefully in her sleep. The world narrowed to the glowing numbers on my bedside clock. I drove the 10 dark miles in a numb silence, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I held her still warm hand, paper thin, and covered in the gentle maps of her life, and I whispered goodbye. The first person I called was Tyler. His voice was thick with sleep and annoyance. "Mom, do you know what time it is?" "Tyler, it's Grandma. She's gone." A long pause, then a sigh. Not a sigh of grief, a sigh of frustration. "Oh, Mom, not now. This is really bad timing." The words felt like a physical slap. "What do you mean, timing, Tyler? Your grandmother died." I know. It's just, this week is our anniversary week, and Jenna's big birthday trip. We're supposed to fly to Napa Valley tomorrow afternoon. We've had this planned for 6 months. The reservations, the vineyard tours. She's been looking forward to this for ages. I could not form a sentence. My mother was lying dead, and he was talking about vineyard tours. You need to come home. The funeral will be in a few days." "Mom, I'll try to figure something out, okay? Let me talk to Jenna. I'll call you back." He never called back. I left messages. I sent texts. The only reply I got, hours later, was a single line, "In meetings. We'll try to rearrange." The next 3 days were a blur of painful, solitary tasks. I chose her casket alone. I met with the pastor alone. I called distant cousins alone. The morning of the funeral dawned gray and drizzling, perfectly matching the hollow space inside my chest. A handful of her friends from the residence came, and a few neighbors. I sat in the front pew of the small chapel, a vacant space beside me, where my son should have been. Through the entire service, I kept glancing at the heavy wooden doors, hoping against hope they would swing open. They never did. That night, exhausted and utterly shattered, I did something I rarely do. I logged onto social media, and there it was, post after post. Tyler and Jenna smiling under a perfect California sun. A video of them toasting with glasses of crimson wine. A photo of an elaborate chocolate cake with the caption, "Celebrating my beautiful wife's birthday in paradise." The hashtags were like little knives. I sat in the dark glow of the computer screen, the silence of the house pressing in on me. He didn't just have a conflict. He made a choice, a conscious, deliberate choice. He chose a birthday party in a vineyard over his own grandmother's funeral. In that moment, the last thread of hope I had clung to, the one my mother had given me, snapped. The silence from Tyler lasted 2 full weeks. I moved through my days like a ghost. I would find myself in the middle of the garden, shears in hand, staring at nothing for 20 minutes. The anger was a hot, burning coal in my stomach. The grief was a cold, heavy stone in my throat. I visited the graves, Gerald's, and now my mother's, side by side, under the old oak tree. "What do I do now?" I asked the quiet air. There was no answer, just the sound of wind in the leaves. Then the phone rang. His name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hi, Mom." His voice was breezy normal. No mention of Napa, no mention of Grandma. "Just checking in. How are you holding up?" "I'm here," I said, my voice flat. Good. Listen, I've been thinking. With everything that's happened, it's got me worried about you, all alone out there in that big house." The coal in my stomach flared. "I'm managing." "Yeah, but for how long, Jenna and I have been talking? We want you to be secure. We know some really excellent financial advisors, people who specialize in estate planning for seniors." They could help you optimize things. Optimize what, Tyler? You know the house, Dad's investments, your savings. Make sure it's all working for you. Maybe even free up some capital. Jenna's friend is a real estate whiz. He says houses in your area are selling for way over asking price. Imagine you could move into one of those beautiful, full-service senior communities, have cash in the bank. I closed my eyes. So it began. The not-so-subtle pivot. This is not a conversation I want to have right now. Just think about it, Mom. It's the smart thing to do. A lot of my friends' parents are helping them get into the market. It's just what families do. After that call, a cold clarity cut through my grief. This wasn't about my security. This was about his opportunity. I made an appointment with old Mr. Henderson, the family lawyer who had drawn up Gerald's will. His office still smelled of lemon polish and old paper, just as it had for 30 years. After I explained the situation, he listened, his fingers steepled. You have every right to change your will, Maud. It's your property. But I must advise you to be certain. These decisions can cause permanent rifts. I think the rift is already here, Bill, I said quietly. Then I asked, has anyone else been inquiring about my affairs? He shifted in his leather chair, looking uncomfortable. Now that you mention it, about 4 months ago, I did receive a call from a paralegal at a firm in Chicago. Very polite. Asked general questions about the probate process on an estate of your approximate size and the legal standing of a sole heir. Said it was for a research project. I gave no specifics, of course, but the timing in light of what you're telling me, I didn't need him to finish. I knew. The reconnaissance had already begun. The pieces clicked into place with a terrible final sound. My son wasn't just distant. He was planning. To him, I was no longer Mom. I was an asset class. And the cold anger that settled in my bones then was more powerful than any sorrow. He showed up unannounced the following Thursday. I saw his rental car pull into the driveway, watched him get out, straightening his suit jacket, that familiar folder under his arm. He looked like a young executive arriving for a hostile takeover, not a son coming home. I opened the door before he could knock. Mother, he said, leaning in for a stiff, one-armed hug. He smelled of expensive cologne and coffee. Tyler, I didn't return the hug. I stepped back. Come in. He walked into the living room, his eyes doing a quick, appraising scan of the furniture, the bookshelves, the rug I'd had for 30 years. He didn't sit. I'm glad you agreed to talk, he began, getting right to it. I've put together a proposal. I think it addresses everyone's concerns. He opened the folder on the coffee table, sliding a sleek, color-coded document toward me. It had charts, graphs, projected market values. Jenna's friend David is a top-tier broker. He's confident we can list the house at $650. In this market, we could see a bidding war push it over $700,000. There's a fantastic senior living community, the Oaks, just 15 minutes from here. Full amenities, healthcare, on-site, social activities. You'd use a portion for the buy-in and the remaining capital. Well, we could place it in a managed growth fund. I'd oversee it, of course. It would provide you with a monthly income and secure the principal for the future. I looked from the glossy papers to his face. A share of the proceeds would allow Jenna and me to make a strategic investment in a property that has real upside. It's a win-win, Mom. You get security and freedom from maintenance. I get a leg up. This house is just sentiment. It's brick and mortar. The memories are in here. He tapped his temple. The memories are in the mortar, Tyler, I said softly. looking at the faint stain on the hardwood where he'd spilled grape juice at age 5. Your father and I built a life in this brick and mortar. He waved a hand, impatient. Sentiment doesn't pay the bills or fund a retirement. Look, I've had my lawyer look into this. He pulled another document from the folder. If you're deemed down the line to be unable to manage your own affairs, the courts often look to the next of kin to make decisions about asset management. This whole process, done now voluntarily, is cleaner. It avoids potential complications later. The threat hung in the air, polite and legal and utterly vile. He was talking about declaring me incompetent. My own son. I stood up, my knees feeling weak, but my spine straight. Are you finished? Mom, don't be emotional. This is just practical. Practical, I repeated. The word tasted like ash. Let me be practical then. On the day we buried your grandmother, the woman who held you as a baby, who knitted you sweaters, who saved every crayon drawing you ever made. On that day, you were in Napa, toasting your wife's birthday. And now, you stand in the home where you grew up, and you hand me papers about complications and asset management. Your future, Tyler, isn't in this house. Your future is in that folder. That's all you see. His face hardened, the polite mask slipping. I'm trying to do what's best for this family. You're being stubborn and short-sighted. You'll regret not taking control of this situation. I want you to leave now. He snatched his papers off the table, shoving them back into the folder. Fine. Think about it. This offer won't be on the table forever. And for your own good, I hope you come to your senses. He turned and walked out, letting the screen door slam shut behind him. The sound echoed in the quiet house, a period at the end of a sentence I never thought would be written. I did not cry. I felt strangely empty, scoured clean by the fire of his words. The grieving was over. Now, there was only the necessity of action. I called Mr. Henderson back. Bill, I'm certain I want to change everything, and I have an idea. I also called my friend Susan, who ran the county's senior outreach program. Over tea at my kitchen table, I asked her not about luxury communities, but about real need. Where do the people with no family go? The ones who have nothing? Her eyes softened with understanding. There's a small nonprofit, Hearts and Homes. They run a few shared living houses and a day center. They're always struggling for funding. Why? I didn't answer fully, but a plan was solidifying in my mind. In Mr. Henderson's office, I laid it out. I would leave the bulk of my savings to establish a scholarship fund at the Cedar Hollow Library in Gerald and Eleanor's names, for trades or nursing. The house upon my passing would be deeded to Hearts and Homes, with a life estate allowing me to live here until I died. They could use it as a group home or sell it to fund their operations. Mr. Henderson was quiet for a long moment. It's legally sound, Maud, and it's a remarkable thing to do. Are you sure Tyler gets nothing? He gets nothing monetary, I said firmly. But I'm not done. I went up to the attic, to the old cedar chest that held the artifacts of our life. I spent an afternoon going through it, the dust motes dancing in the slants of sunlight. I selected items not for their value, but for their meaning. Then I sat at the little writing desk that had been my mother's and began to write a letter. It wasn't an angry letter. It was a heartbreaking one. I wrote about the boy he was and the man he had become. I wrote about what he was throwing away. I sealed it in an envelope. In the following weeks, I started volunteering at the Hearts and Homes Day Center serving lunches. I met people whose loneliness made mine look like a minor shadow. I listened to their stories. I felt useful again. And, in the quiet evenings, I tended Gerald's roses. I was no longer just waiting. I was building a new ending, one that honored the love that had built this home, not the greed that sought to dismantle it. A month to the day after his visit, I called Tyler. My voice was calm. "I've thought about it. I have my answer. Can you come over?" He arrived, looking triumphant, sure his practical arguments had won the day. This time, he accepted a glass of water. He sat on the edge of the sofa, ready to do business. "I've made my decision regarding my will and the house." I began, my hands folded in my lap. A slight, confident smile touched his lips. "Good. I knew you'd see reason. I am not selling the house, and I have instructed my lawyer to draft a new will. Upon my death, my savings will fund a scholarship in your father's and grandmother's names. This house will be donated to a charity that helps lonely seniors." The smile vanished. His face went blank, then flushed a deep red. You're what? Have you lost your mind? To strangers, over your own son." "No, Tyler, not over my son, instead of my son." He shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly. "This is insane. That's my inheritance. I'll fight this. I'll get a lawyer and prove you're not competent. You're a vulnerable old woman being taken advantage of by charities and lawyers." I remained seated, looking up at him. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. "You have every right to try, but before you do that, I want you to look at something." I reached beside my chair and lifted the old wooden keepsake box onto the coffee table. I opened the lid. "This," I said, "is your inheritance." He stared, confused and furious. I began to take the items out, one by one, placing them gently on the table. His first-grade photo with 2 front teeth missing. The tiny ceramic handprint he made in kindergarten. The rusty, beloved toy tow truck Gerald had spent a whole weekend fixing long after it was commercially repairable. The construction paper card with crayon hearts that read, "To the best mom in the world." The letter from summer camp on lined notebook paper that said, "I miss you and Dad so much, it hurts. Camp is fun, but home is better." Finally, I placed a yellowed, typewritten page on top. "And this," I said, my voice thickening just a little, "is the original draft of your father's will. The one he wrote before the official one. I found it last week." Tyler's eyes dropped to the page. I watched as he read his father's words, typed on Gerald's old manual typewriter. "And to my son Tyler, I leave the most valuable things I possess, a strong work ethic, the integrity to look any man in the eye, and the understanding that family is the only wealth that never depreciates. If you hold these things close, you will be richer than any money could ever make you." The room was utterly silent. The anger seemed to drain from Tyler's body, leaving him looking pale and suddenly young. He stared at the toy truck, at the childish handwriting, at his father's words. "Your father left you a fortune, Tyler," I said, the tears finally coming not of weakness, but of profound loss. "A fortune in love, in memory, in character. That was your real inheritance, and you have spent years liquidating it. You cashed in your respect for your grandmother for a plane ticket. You're trying to cash in your loyalty to your parents for a down payment, money I could give you. But these things," I gestured to the humble treasures on the table. "Once they're gone, no lawyer on earth, no court order can get them back for you." I handed him the sealed letter I had written. "This is for you, not a legal document, just words from your mother. The door to this house and to my life remains open, but it is open to my son, not to my heir. You need to decide which one you want to be." He didn't speak. He looked from the box to my face, and for a fleeting second, I saw not the calculating businessman, but the ghost of the bewildered little boy who spilled the grape juice. He picked up the letter, in the old camp letter, his hands trembling slightly. He turned and walked out, leaving his expensive folder untouched on the side table. He closed the door softly behind him. There was no dramatic reconciliation. Life isn't a movie. But something shifted. The Cold War was over. The slow, quiet work of my new life continued. I spend 2 days a week at the Hearts and Homes Center. I play cards with a man named Walter, who has no one. I help serve meals. My world, which had shrunk to the size of this house, and my grief has expanded again. The legal work was finalized. Knowing this house will someday shelter others who are alone brings me a deep, strange peace. It's no longer just my burden. It's my legacy. The first Gerald and Eleanor Dawson Memorial Scholarships were awarded last spring. I sat in the back of the library during the ceremony. One went to a young woman named Chloe, who wants to be a nurse. The other to a quiet boy named Elijah, who is a whiz with engines. The look in their eyes, that mix of gratitude and hope, it filled a place in me I thought would be empty forever. Tyler calls now every few weeks. The conversations are awkward, stilted. He asks about the weather, my garden. He tells me about work, but not about Jenna. I heard through an old family friend that they separated. It seems a foundation built on shared ambition can crack just as easily as any other. He sent a Christmas card last year, a simple winter scene. He signed it, "Love Tyler." Just that. It felt fragile, like the first green shoot after a long frost. The lesson I learned is this: unconditional love does not mean unconditional access. Love must have boundaries, or it becomes a resource to be mined until it's depleted. And a parent's greatest duty is not to provide an inheritance, but to pass on values that can't be spent. The true estate we leave isn't recorded in a will. It's etched in the hearts of those we loved well. Now, when I sit on the porch swing in the evening, watching Gerald's roses bloom, I don't feel lonely. I feel surrounded by the ghosts of love, past, and by the living, breathing proof that kindness planted in one place can bloom in another, in the heart of a stranger, or maybe one day find its way home again. What about you? What kind of legacy are you building with the people you love? Is it measured in what you can give them or in what you teach them to value? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a like. It lets me know these conversations matter. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about finding strength in the second half of life. And if you know someone who needs to hear about the difference between an inheritance and a legacy, please share this with them. Thank you for listening. And remember, no matter where you are in your story, it's never too late to plant a new seed.